grant us a vision of our city, fair as she might be. A city of justice, where none shall prey on others. A city of plenty, where vice and poverty shall cease to fester. A city of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to nobleness alone. A city of peace, where order shall not rest on force, but on the love of all for the city, the great mother of the common life and weal.
I don't see this as the story of a pop group. I see this as a story of a city that once upon a time was shiny and bold and revolutionary, and then suddenly, 30-odd years later, is shiny and revolutionary all over again. And at the heart of this transformation is a bunch of groups, and one group in particular.
Go further back in time, further back through time, to another set of memories. Tell me what you see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I can remember very precisely what Manchester was like in the mid-70s. It felt like a piece of history that had been spat out. This had been the historic centre of the modern world. We invented the Industrial Revolution in this town, and yet, even though we did, we also invented these conditions. It was really grimy and dirty old town.
You were always looking for beauty because it was such an ugly place. Whether again on a subconscious level. I mean, I don't think I saw a tree till I was about 9.
Here are your playgrounds, your porches and sun lounges, and whatever else you can use them for.
I was just surrounded by factories and nothing that was pretty, nothing.
I remember like the first time I was in Manchester, seeing all these end-to-end terrace houses. And then the next time you went, there was just a pile of rubble. Then the next time you went, there was sort of like all this building work. And then by the time you were in your teens, it was this big concrete fortress, quite futuristic at the time. And then, of course, concrete came to set in, and it looks horrible.
I was born in 1956. I lived in my grandparents' house, and they used to talk about the war all the time. My grandparents' sister had been bombed. House had gone. I remember we had a room there, and it was full of, like, gas masks and tin helmets, British flags, and, you know, roll radio sets, paraphernalia for the war.
I met Bernadine in Salford Grammar School when we were 11. Then you get less for murder, don't you?
I guess living in Salford, you're a bit of a nobody, really. You know, you didn't have much chance of progressing in the world, really. You were thought of as factory fodder. So we just sort of wasted our time together.
We were really, really normal, daft beer boys, I suppose you'd have to say. I had to have myriad distractions while I was working. And basically, it was reading the evening news. When I was going through the little adverts in the classified and just scanning them for anything of interest. The Sex Pistols, 50p, less a free trade on. Yeah, I thought that looks interesting. I thought it was shite. It was just like a car crash. It was like, oh my God, I'd never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, I'd been to see most groups, you know, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin. I'd never seen anything as chaotic or as exciting and as rebellious. It was how I felt. You know, you just wanted to trash everything.
It was a right racket, you know, and you just thought, fucking hell, I could do that. You know, I could just about do that.
We'd formed a band then that night there, and then we formed a group. It's easy to form a group. It's all the rest that's difficult. We went to see the second Sex Pistols gig when the Buzzcocks supported them, and we were in it then.
We had a meeting with them on Friday evening because they said, well, we'd like to start a band, but we need some help. And because, like I say, punk being an inclusive thing, and we needed all the similar-minded people that we could have, you know, to make it a growing concern.
We advertised for a drummer and singer. One guy rang up, and he didn't sound mad. And I said, what's your name? He went, Ian. I said, Ian who? He went, Ian Curtis. I said, oh. Because there was two guys called the Two Ians.
They advertised it for a singer, and Ian answered it, and we met in the pub in Sale. You'd look at him and you think, Christ, you know, quite frightening-looking guy, leather pants, combat jacket with hate on the back, and getting daggers from the locals, like, what the hell's this, what's he? Pretty dangerous thing to do in 1976 Manchester.
I said, oh, the Two Ians, right? We met you at the Clash gig the other day, or whatever, you know.
And I was going, you know, like, the punk ideals, you know, being married, boring. You went, oh, I'm married. You know, he shows me his wedding ring. But he's such a nice guy, I thought, oh, yeah, doesn't matter.
Like, yeah, that's me. I said, all right, yeah, all right, you've got the job. And that was it, over the phone. The first set of material we wrote was just us aping punk, really. Completely aping it and doing it really badly. Yeah, bollocks, you know, these really dreadful songs.
Drummer wanted for a local punk band, Warsaw. I get on the phone, expecting some sort of oafish punk type. And it was a very mild-mannered, very chatty Ian. The first gig that I had with them was the last night at the Electric Circus.
The Electric Circus was one of the places that we hired from bemused hippies on their quiet night to put on emerging punk rock.
Can you explain to me why you come to the Electric Circus?
Because it's the best place where they put punk rock bands on. It's just got a great atmosphere.
It's like you've just come out of Rizzler for the day, doesn't it? You won't go and see it, I tell you. Bottles for plastic punk. I wanted to do something for me. Because look at me now, I'm nothing.
That's what punk is.
You can sort of go in and really enjoy yourself, you know, jump about a bit, let yourself go. Why not?
It became a punk club and absolutely a very important part of the whole landscape. And then suddenly we were saying goodbye to it in an emotional weekend do that was recorded rather pitifully by Virgin Records.
You all forgot Rudolf Hess!
And yeah, the Warsaw and the we remember Rudolf Hess thing and all that kind of nonsense. At the time, whenever any of that happened, those of us within it had not a moment's doubt that it was anything dicey. You know, you just sort of trusted somehow the instincts of locals that it was not dicey.
Some guy at work gave me a couple of books. One was called House of Dolls. And I knew it was about the Nazis, but I didn't read it. And I just flicked through the pages. It was the brothel that the soldiers went to. And I thought, well, it's pretty bad taste, but it's quite punk. And everyone I told the name to went, That's a great name.
It sounds too neat and tidy, but it almost seems to be that it all came when they had the name. It was like Roxy Music or Velvet Underground. You know, you knew instantly from the moment it happened, it was one of those names.
At that stage, when we made our first record, An Ideal for Living, we just were making this music and we wanted people to hear it. And it was very much a punk ethos of do-it-yourself, independence, forget big labels, forget small, you know, cottage industry.
I'd actually forgotten that Ian borrowed the money. God, if I did it now, my wife would kill me. So how we got away with it then is unbelievable, you know.
So we banged it down, heard it in the studio, we thought it sounded great. You know, a couple of weeks later, we got the vinyl, you know, Ideal for Living, I'd drawn the sleeve and that, and right, I know what we'll do, we'll take it to Pips, you know, local club that we go to. Went to the DJ, yeah, mate, play our record. It's us, you know, us. So he said, no, fuck off. No, come on, it's us, been coming here for years, playing. So with loads of people on the dance floor, puts it on, right, listen to it. And the pressing was so bad, it was like completely muffled. So quiet, you wouldn't believe it. And it just cleared the dance floor. Everyone just walked off, and he took it off halfway through. We were like, oh, shit, what have we done?
We didn't play for 6 months, we couldn't get a gig. Nobody would give us a gig as Joy Division. It was really difficult. I think they thought we were yobs, which we were.
It spurred us on to rehearse and write and get really, really tight, so that when we did get a gig, we would show the bastards.
We used to rehearse twice a week, and in those 3 and 2 hours, you'd invariably get a song, you know.
We had enormous factory floor to ourselves. In the winter, we used to just brush all the rubbish to one end of the room and set fire to it to just keep warm in it. We were all on our own island, what we're doing, and we just really made sure that what we were doing sounded great and sort of didn't pay any attention to what the others were doing.
When I played low, I couldn't hear anything at all. When I played high, I could pick it out because of the row, because Barney's amp was really loud. Then Ian just latched on to you playing high, and he'd say, that sounds good when you play high. Barney plays guitar, you know, we should work on that. That sounds really distinctive.
Just a happy accident like that gave us our sound, you know. He always had a box of words, and he would just pull some words out and start singing them, so he already had them, really, because he would be at home writing every night anyway. And they had like a Battle of the Bands night for young bands that were just starting out, you know. I remember Paul Morley being there in a band. Kevin Cummins was in his band. I think Richard Boone was in it. It was like a joke band, you know, they were having a laugh.
But everybody, including Joy Division, you know, turned up to you know, to win, you know, like some weird prototype X Factor.
This was when I first saw the other side of him. He was a really lovely, really nice, polite, intelligent guy. But if he didn't get what he wanted through being like that, he would explode into this kind of frenzied, you know, frenzied thing, because that's the only way he could get what he wanted. The door down at their dressing room and going to Paul Morley and Kevin Cummins and them going, you're not fucking going on. Like, you're not fucking going on, we'll kill you. If you go on, we'll bottle you. We're going on. Ian had previously gone up earlier in the night to Tony Wilson to complain, called him a cunt, you know. He says, you're a cunt, you. Tony was like, why, darling? What have I done, darling? And he'd be like, well, you won't put us on your... Tony had a TV programme then.
I didn't answer him, but I remember thinking, you know, you're next in the list, you fucking idiot.
I spend a lot of my days working out how I can possibly explain to people how bizarre this is that this man would suddenly come to be involved.
Tony Wilson reports.
The Southwark, Lambeth and Lewisham Area Health Authority is the largest single health authority in the country. Welcome to the circus.
was like seeing an alien with tentacles and 8 eyes. Really, when I first met Tony Wilson, he was just like from another planet. He was showbiz, wasn't he, you know? He was a star.
Tony had So It Goes, one of the only platforms that championed punk and the new wave. And that was wonderful. And strangely, a champion within the establishment. I mean, there's nothing more establishment, particularly to young people, than television.
Every other band that night at Rafters was on stage because they wanted to be on stage. They wanted to be rock stars. They wanted to be in the music business. But this lot were on stage because they had no fucking choice.
The next day, I remember being in a phone booth in Spring Gardens in Manchester, just outside the post office there. There was a knock on the booth. I opened the door and, yeah, this guy stood there and it was Rob Gretton.
I knew Rob Gretton because he was one of the other DJs at Rafters. I just have this picture in my mind I can still see of him ranting at me ecstatically about how wonderful he thought they were and weren't they the best band you'd ever seen in your life. And he was going to manage them and he was going to take them to all sorts of places you wouldn't believe.
One of the first things that Rob Gretton did when he came along was he said, "That fucking record you've done," he says, "get rid of that fucking cover. Everyone thinks you're Nazis because of it. Get rid of that fucking cover." Whose idea was that, you tosser, you know? So we're going to do a new cover and we're going to press it as a 12-inch so it sounds loud. So he did it and we played it and then it was like, wow, yeah, he's right, yeah, it sounds fantastic. When he was DJing, he was playing soul music, I think, but his ideology was really punk. We'd met a guy called Richard Serling from RCA Records.
Ian was a regular visitor to the RCA offices. The main reason for that was that he adored Iggy Pop, and they wanted a punk band. A punk band. I didn't know anybody other than, oh, Ian's got a band.
He wanted us to do a cover version of this Northern Soul record called Keep On Keeping On, which when he played it, we were quite impressed with, actually. It had a really stonking guitar riff in it.
The engineer must have been pretty good.
I can always remember him trying to get Ian to sound like James Brown, telling him to sing like James Brown. He just got a bottle of whiskey and we plying him with whiskey and telling him to belt it out like James Brown, and it's not the way, really. He just kind of got very fractious and started yelping like a dog and decided we'd best take him home.
Punk enabled you to say, fuck you. But somehow, it couldn't go any further. It was just a single, venomous, one-syllable, two-syllable phrase of anger, which was necessary to reignite rock and roll. But sooner or later, someone was going to want to say more than fuck you. Someone was going to want to say, I'm fucked. And it was Joy Division who were the first band to do that, to use the energy and simplicity of punk to express more complex emotions.
Seeing as how this is the programme which previously brought you first television appearances from everything from the Beatles to the Buzzcocks, would you like to keep our hand in and keep you informed of the most interesting new sounds in the Northwest? This, Joy Division, is the most interesting new sound we've come across in the last 6 months. They're a Manchester band, with the exception of the guitarist, who comes from Salford. Very important difference. They're called Joy Division. This number is Shadow Play.
center of the city where our roads meet, waiting for you. To the depths of the ocean where all hope sank, searching for you. Moving through the silence without motion, waiting for you. In a room with no window in the corner, I found truth.
When Tony started doing the factory nights, there was always this kind of void. There was the band, then there was nothing, and then there was some people sort of lurking. And second time, the sort of void was kind of getting sort of narrower and narrower, so that eventually there was even the odd person dancing. Ooh, hey, we've got an audience now.
I saw him and I was just absolutely astounded. It was unbelievably good. And I felt so in awe of somebody I knew. Ian's just there and he starts that dance, which I'd seen the very kind of like seeds of. And it was otherworldly. And I'm thinking, this is Ian who kind of buys flowers for his wife. And he's up on stage and it's totally inspirational and hypnotic. And I'm sold to it. I've bought it totally.
Center of the city where the roads meet, waiting for you. Through the depths of the ocean where the hope sinks, searching for you. I was moving through the silence without motion, waiting for you. In a room with a window in the corner, I found truth.
Just be drawn into it. It functioned like those shaman things do. You're just kind of pulled into the moment. They're a very interesting band about time because they're very informed by the past, but also you're always propelled into just a moment of present with them. Time sort of stops.
They were just absolutely stunning. I couldn't believe it. I'm getting a real goosebumps now because I can remember it. But not in my head, in my stomach. This just got me there, you know, it's just, whoa. We were only originally going to have 2 songs and then do a short film about what was happening within Manchester with Anderton. He was a very right-wing and very vociferous chief constable.
He believed he spoke directly to God every night. He believed that God sent him messages, and it felt really genuinely threatening.
It felt like there was a bad moon rising, you know. It felt like there was bad shit on the way. Well, it was, actually. The sewers were up at the time. A great metaphor for whatever the fuck was going on. And then you had the looming Thatcher thing, creating this consumerist stroke fascist society. And then we cut to, if you like, the underground feel of the rehearsal rooms, where it's almost like a resistance group. That was the idea to get across, that this was the resistance through art and culture.
When Tony sat with Alan and I, sort of Christmas '78, and said, I think we could do a record from the club for the bands that haven't got contracts yet. This was just like terribly, terribly exciting.
Suddenly we had a producer and his name was Martin Hannett.
I mean, they were a gift to a producer.
Why?
Because he didn't have a clue.
All right.
And I could work out loads of little things on them, you know. And they wouldn't squabble or argue or say why.
So what was the first thing you did with them? Was it Ideal Factory Sample?
Factory Sample. Well, it's called digital. It's just, you know, heaven sent.
digital are actually digital. This on-off, day in, day out, day in, day out. And this switching is also somehow weirdly related to Curtis's persona itself, which is, we know now, is bipolar. On the one hand, we have the lad going down the pub with his mates, fooling around. On the other hand, we have the aesthete who's reading poetry and imbibing himself with all kinds of highfalutin ideas that he's going to be a romantic pop star hero.
Ian just looks straight into the camera while he's smoking. It's the eyes, the slight translucency of his eyes looking into the camera that sends a chill through people. 16, 17, 18, 20 and 21, we're getting there. One was in silhouette and then was one when they came slightly out the passageway and we've got some side lights. Already, by then, I've shot 2/3 of a roll of film, and I'm conscious of the fact that I didn't really think I had anything. I'm walking up the bridge and they're waiting for me, and I just felt it looked so bleak and they were so un-rock and roll-like that I took 2 frames and then took an upright shot of the same thing, and that's all I did of that picture, and that's, I guess, become probably the most recognised Joy Division image.
The whole idea was to get your band signed to a major. And I was sitting in the Band on the Wall one Sunday night with Gretton, who suddenly turns to me and goes, "Why don't we do our first album with you and then go to Warner Brothers?" I remember, far from being, wow, it was like, "Are you sure? How much is that going to cost?" Martin says it'll cost 10 grand. It cost 25, the bastard.
With Unknown Pleasures, I think we had 3 weekends. Could be wrong, but I think it was 3 weekends to record and mix it. So we played them all live, so the first thing we did with Martin was to just get them recorded in the studio, and then it would be experimentation time, and he'd start putting wacky noises on it, like he recorded the lift shaft.
It was kind of like you going on some sort of strange science fiction-based journey. There was a lot of pot smoked. He wouldn't say to you, "I want you to do it like this." It was kind of all, do it again, but a bit more cocktail party, or a bit more yellow.
Magnificent but humble.
Faster but slower.
Whether it was pot or whether it was the Zen school of production, I don't know.
We're all ready.
Let's try one.
Oh, fucking break.
Fuck off, Ian.
Memorably, he had the AMS, a digital delay line. You press the button, and you hit the snare drum, it goes, "Oh, there's my snare drums in the box now." How have you done that, Martin? That's amazing.
It was using that machine that Martin changed drum sounds forever. But I never knew that Martin was significantly involved in creating the machine. These 2 strange whiz kids from AMS, Burnley, Lancashire, England, had discovered Hannett, and once a month they would meet him in a car park on top of the moors in between Manchester and Burnley. And this lunatic stroke drug addict would clamber out of his old Volvo into the back of their car and would rabbit on for 30 minutes about the sounds he was imagining in his head.
Well, this is possibly heresy. I think Martin proposed a way to understand Joy Division. He heard something, he saw something, he felt something from them, and was able to project in his mind what it could be.
Well, the songs were great anyway. Martin didn't write them. He only produced them. He started, you know, chipping in when we needed him, but that's the job of a producer anyway, really.
I just remember the sleeve, you know, it was just an uncanny moment because it did belong in your collection. next to Roxy Music, next to Velvet, and it didn't look wrong. It was just next to, you know, Diamond Dogs. It was a great piece of work, but he didn't borrow any of that language. He didn't borrow any of that visual language. It was totally itself, and I couldn't work out where it had come from.
I made the cover that I would have wanted had I found it in a record rack. And nobody obliged me to do otherwise. I hadn't heard the music. They'd given me the elements. I mean, the wave pattern is astonishing. I mean, what an amazing image for something called Unknown Pleasures. I took it to Rob's house. I took the artwork to Rob, and he said, I have a test pressing. Do you want to listen to it? I didn't know if I could sit through 40 minutes of Joy Division, especially in front of their manager. But I couldn't really say no. And within moments, I knew that I had a part in a kind of life-changing experience. Minute after minute was beyond anything I could have expected. It was just beyond. It was astonishing.
And just as soon as it started and the drums sounded like no drums had ever sounded, and everything seemed to belong in its own space and not quite connecting somehow, something amazing had happened.
Sensations make me feel the pleasures of a noble man. These sensations spare the insults, leave them for another day. I've got the spirit, lose the feeling, take the shock away.
When Unknown Pleasures came out, it was sort of like, this is the ambient music for my environment. I mean, I think about Geordies, they're an ambient band. Almost. You don't see them function as a band, it's just the noise around where you are.
It was almost like a science fiction interpretation of Manchester. You could recognise the landscape and the mindscape and the soundscape as being Manchester. It was extraordinary that they'd managed to make Manchester international, if you like, make Manchester cosmic.
It's getting faster, moving faster now, it's getting out of hand. On the 10th floor, down the back stairs, into no man's land. Lights are flashing, cars are crashing, getting frequent now. I've got the spirit, lose the feeling, let it out somehow.
Unknown Pleasures is also, of course, a very iPodded kind of world. It's urban, but it's not. It's about a landscape, but that landscape is primarily an interior landscape. And so what is very, very important about it now is to see where we've traveled from since then and exactly why it still sounds so bloody contemporary.
I'm watching you, I watch it all, I take no pity from your friends. Who is right, who can tell, and who gives a damn right now? Until the spirit new sensation takes hold, then you know. Until the spirit new sensation takes hold, then you know. Until the spirit new sensation takes hold, then you know. I got the spirit, but lose a feeling. I got the spirit, but lose a feeling. Feeling, 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 feeling,
When Unknown Pleasures came out, it got universal critical acclaim.
It must be only me and Bernard in the whole bleeding world that don't like Unknown Pleasures. you know, which is quite ironic, isn't it? The only thing we agree on.
I mean, Unknown Pleasures, I admit, even after we recorded it, I found it quite difficult to listen to it myself because it was so dark. I don't think the production helped because that made it darker, even darker still. But I thought, well, no one's going to listen to this. It's too bloody heavy. You know, it's too impenetrable. I think also in our lives, we'd all had very dark experiences, you know. We were only like 21, but say for me, I had a lot of death and illness in my family, and to experience such things at a young age makes you quite a serious person. Ian, I guess, in his line of work, what he did, you know, was quite serious. She's Lost Control was about a girl that he worked with at a disability centre that came in to see him, and I think he really liked her, you know, thought she was a nice girl, and he was trying to get her work at different places, and one day she didn't come in and she died from a fit. And he was quite shocked by that, and I think that this was before he had epilepsy himself. So he wrote She's Lost Control about her.
And you can see them now as Ian Curtis sings the brilliant She's Lost Control.
Confusion in her eyes that says it all. She's lost control. And she's clinging to the nearest passerby. She's lost control. And she gave away the secrets of her past and said she's lost control again. And of a voice that told her when and where to act, she said, I've lost control again.
In September '79, we turned over to BBC Two, and I've never seen a TV performance like it. Ian Curtis's performance and the band's performances just totally broke through the plastic of the medium. Going from musicians who couldn't even play their instruments, suddenly they were a supergroup. And I was astonished to see this.
Stand, 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 stand to the radio. 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 Oh, I was wrong, I planned to go and get tough. Things you've learned are no longer enough. Well, now it's the sound, it's all we need to know. Synchronize love to the beat of the show. And we can dance. Dance, 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 dance to the
They must have had a sense within the unit that they'd done something special. Ian's ambition, obviously, was the one ultimately that created the great catastrophe. But I think the others had their own ambition within that, even if it was just to be the greatest bass player on the planet.
I just wanted us to be how we sounded live. And it was purely that, you know. I didn't want it to sound melancholy. I didn't want it to last. I wanted just to lock people's heads off, like Iggy Pop live. I wasn't interested in depth or anything. I just wanted to, you know, kick them in the teeth.